There are times in life when things get so crazy, so chaotic, that it makes you think. It makes you wonder what is going on here. Where is the music? Now, I interviewed Sharon LaBelle twice, and the first time I did, she said something like that. She sometimes you ask yourself, like, where's the music? Because life just has a way of getting crazy, getting hectic. And of course, it comes and goes. There are times when things are crazy, and there's times when things are rather chill, relaxed. You have a little bit of time to breathe, to catch your breath. It's very it's very natural, these ebbs and flows. It's like the tides. The tides come in, the tides come out or go out, and the same thing happens with, for lack of a better phrase, just for the craziness in life. And it's one of those things where, like, when you're in the good time, when you're in the good swing of it, and you have time to breathe and you're relaxed, you look back at, like, the crazy times and you think, man, like, I had that. That was good. I had it together. You might even be proud of yourself, right? You might even have a little bit of pride in there that you were able to get through something. But when you're in the moment, when you're going through the chaos itself, it's just a different thing. It's a different story. You're filled with doubt. You're scared. You're anxious, and you're not really sure. Like, you feel like you're not going to be able to get out of it. That's why one of the best phrases that you can think of in such times is "this too shall pass." It's a very wise statement. It means everything in life is impermanent. Things change all the time, and it's not a good thing and it's not a bad thing. It's just a natural law. It means in the bad times, this too shall pass. Things won't always be great. And in the good times, this too shall pass. Things will not always be good. So find some gratitude. And so, whether you're in the good times or the bad times, this too shall pass is a very wise statement. And it's just very helpful for you to bring yourself back. This too shall pass. But the funny thing about that is you never really believe it. And so it's crazy because when you're in a quote, quote, crazy time, again, you don't feel confident that you're going to be able to climb your way out of it. That's why you have to remind yourself that this too shall pass. And in the same way, in a positive way, when you have a lot of great things happening in your life and things are peaceful, you also just naturally think, you know what, things are going to stay like this for a little while. And a great example of this is just how we all seem to take for granted everything in our lives, from the people we spend time with to the things we have to how far we've come as a person, our character development. We all take for granted how far we have because we just kind of assume that everything is going to stay the same. We assume status quo. And of course, that's not true. Of course, it's not true. This too shall pass. Life changes. The tides come in, the tides go out. This too shall pass. Remind yourself regularly that life is impermanent. Things are in a constant state of change. But I want to talk a little bit about how when you're in those crazy times, and I've done a few episodes on those particularly deep moments, how you can bring yourself back to, like, some perspective. And the reason this is fresh in my mind, I took a 2 week hiatus, I guess, from the podcast, and it wasn't planned. It's work got really busy, and I couldn't be in front of my mic literally because I was away from work, and so I just decided, let's take 2 weeks, let's deal with the work stuff, and let's get back to this. And during that 2 week time, it was one of those times. It was really, really crazy. And in hindsight, looking back, it reminds me of those words from Sharon, those really wise words from Sharon LaBelle, which is that, sometimes in life we get these phases. Things get dull, or things get crazy, or things get hectic. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. But the feeling is, where is the music? And I love that. I mean, I'm a musician. I don't know if I could call myself that because I don't play much anymore, but I've been playing guitar since I was 9, and I'm an avid music listener, like most people. And music seems to represent, for me, beauty. I think it does for most people. It's something that can kind of take you out of your current situation in life and just make you feel fulfilled, make you feel like how you should feel if you were living a flourishing life. Hey there. Let me thank you for being a listener to this ad-free podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, there are a few things you can do to help me out. A 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this really does help, and it's free. You can also sign up for my Substack newsletter or Patreon. Substack free gets each episode emailed to you along with the transcripts in the form of an article. You'll also get access to my live talks, followed by a Q&A afterward. Substack Premium supporters and my patrons on Patreon get access to the recordings and a brief article of those Q&A sessions, access to full episodes of the Paradoxically Speaking podcast, my Steps to Success interview series, Stoic meditations, and much more. Links to Substack and Patreon can be found in the show notes. So music is beauty. It's more than beauty, or equivalent to beauty. It's harmony. It's everything working in harmony together. And so those words from Sharon are really true. Where is the music? And that's how it feels in those darker times. Now, in the good times, there's music all the time. You're in harmony. You feel that. And so you don't ask yourself, where's the music? It doesn't feel like anything's missing. But when life throws you some lemons, when life is crazy, that's the feeling. Why is everything the way it is? And is it going to stay this way? And there's a really dark element to this. And, because I said, well, this too shall pass, right? Everything changes, everything evolves. So when you're in the bad times, eventually things will be good again. And that's true up until your death. And that's, again, if we take the Stoic approach, death isn't good or bad. It's a natural thing. But there's going to be a time in your life, at the end of your life, when things kind of get bad and they don't get better. They just decline until you inevitably pass away. That's a very, very dark thought to consider. I don't want to explore it too deeply, but it's something I think about when I have a cold, when I'm really sick. I think at a certain point in time, I'm going to feel this way, and then I'm just going to pass away. And so there's these natural cycles of life. They are natural cycles of life, and they don't persist after death. So that's a bit of a dark thing to consider. And I guess that's why when we're in those dark moments, we do feel like we're never going to get out of it again, because we're in those. Well, there's the potential, I guess, that this could actually be the end, that there could be no more good times coming around the corner. And so time and time again throughout life, you kind of prove yourself wrong, right? Go through a bad time. And then eventually what happens is things swing up the other way. Things are great again. Life is good again, despite how little hope you have for that. And that's true throughout your whole life until it isn't, until you pass away. And so it's just another, I guess, memento mori meditation on the fact that, like, don't take for granted when things start getting good again. Like, have a bit of gratitude for that. Don't take it for granted, because there's going to be a time when it doesn't. There's going to be a time when things do not turn for the better. They turn for the worst, and then you die, which is, again, not good or bad. Death is neutral. It's an indifferent to a stoic. Kind of hard thing to reconcile with our, with our survival instincts. So, what do we do? What do we do in those moments when we got to remind ourselves that this too shall pass? Well, like the first thing is really to just remind yourself that this too shall pass, which is it's hard to do in the moment. But if you can find just that little sliver, that little reminder, and then you can change your perspective to a way that reminds you, okay, wait, I've been here before. This is nothing new. This too shall pass. You can also zoom out. It's another great stoic trick. You zoom out. You think, well, is this thing, are these things that I'm dealing with right now, are any of them going to matter in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 100 years, in 1,000 years, when I'm long dead and gone? So zoom out. And a lot of times the things that we bother ourselves with on a daily basis, they don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. They do in the sense that your decisions today affect the future, and every little decision you make on the road to wherever you're going does contribute to the final product, to your final destination. But again, an equally valid perspective is that things are a lot smaller, really, in the grand scheme of things, than you often give credit for. And so remind yourself of that. But let's go back to Sharon's quote. Where's the music? And you know, man, I was in a bookstore the other day and I was reading this passage, and it was a random book. I picked it up and I started reading it, and it was like a meditation. It was a prayer, and it was something like, when life gets chaotic, may I have the grace, I guess, may I have the wisdom to slow down and listen to the music. And man, it just brought me right back to Sharon's quote, right? Slow down and listen to the music. That's a great answer. That's a great practice. So you're in a crazy moment. Work is nuts. Your life is nuts. One of your parents just died. Whatever you're dealing with, that's just absolutely bonkers. Why don't we take a moment and slow down and just sit a little bit? And here's the crazy thing about that is that you don't feel like you can. You don't feel like you can because there's all these demands on you. Oh, I got to plan my parents' funeral. I got to pay that bill. I got to pay this bill. I got to show up to work. I got to be there for my family. Whatever you're dealing with, you feel like you can't take a minute and just listen to the music. But you know what? The fact that you feel like you can't is the exact reason why you should. And again, hard to know that, hard to recognize that, hard to have that perspective in the moment. But that's what we got to do. So remind yourself that life is impermanent. Everything changes until it doesn't. Until it doesn't. Be grateful for what you have when you have it. When times are bad, remind yourself that this too shall pass. And man, zoom out, because what you're dealing with right now is probably a tiny, tiny pebble on a very long, rocky road. Zoom out. You'll be surprised how little this little thing will matter in a year. And finally, what's the antidote to wondering where the music is? Well, you slow down and you give yourself a chance to listen to the music. You slow down, man. And if you think you can't, I assure you, you can. That doesn't mean you ignore everything else and you just drop all your responsibility. No, of course, you have a cross to bear and you have to bear that damn thing. But you can take 10 minutes, man. You can take a moment. You can breathe a little bit, take some deep breaths. You can play your favorite song. You can talk to your favorite friend. You can call your mother. You can call your father. It's going to be okay. It's really going to be okay. May I have the wisdom in times of chaos to slow down, not speed up, but slow down and listen to the music.